Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Zebra Talk, the podcast where we shine a little light onto the lives of the untold stories of the people who slide on their knees and count the threes. That's right, I'm talking about the referees. And today I'm joined by one of the, let's just go ahead and say it, one of the heroes of our community, like one of the pillars, like one of the if there's a Mount Rushmore, this guy's going to be on it at some point. You've seen him in WWE for 20 plus years, in the past. And most recently, he's been doing his thing up in Canada with, like Sportsnet and the Aftermath the TV show. Please welcome Jimmy Korderas. How are you today, sir?
I'm good, Robert. Thank you for having me on. And please don't call me sir. Jimmy is fine. And it's funny. I love the fact in the intro you mentioned the sliding on your knees. And trust me, not to give away age or anything, but later on, you're going to feel it, brother.
Sure. Yeah. I always find it really funny when people on Zebra Talk ask the question, like, should we wear knee pads? And I'm just like, oh, man, how long have you not been wearing knee pads? Because you're going to feel it, brother.
No, I know the old school mentality is no, but you can't put that stuff over and you look weak in front of the boys and stuff like that. And then all of a sudden, because you can wear those sleeve knee pads. It's got a padded knee part, but it's almost like a sleeve. Yeah. I ended up getting those, and trust me, if I hadn't gotten those, I probably wouldn't be walking today.
Yeah, that's definitely what I've been wearing pretty much the duration, and it has helped me out quite a bit. And it's strange that, people, the majority of the reason why I hear people don't want to use it is they think it looks funny under their pants. And I'm like, you're wearing black pants, brother, and you're the referee. Like, nobody's going to be looking at your knees and like, why are his knees so bulgy? Like, that's ridiculous. But
and they shouldn't be that tight, your pants anyways, because then you run the risk of, like I have in the past. Yes, exactly. And not only in the knee, but in certain other areas that are,
we are,
you don't want to, yeah.
We are kindred spirits in that. I actually had the the opportunity of splitting my pants right open on the seam during the main of a 6-man on Championship Wrestling from Hollywood. So that was pretty great.
Question for you now.
Yes, sir.
Were you wearing black underneath your black pants?
I sure was after that every other time I've ever refereed, but I was not.
Exactly. That's how I learned. I learned the hard way because I was wearing, let's say, I was wearing blue.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden this happened in a match with, Outback Jack. And I want to say Frenchie Martin.
Okay.
That's how far back it goes anyways. And it happened. And when we got to the back, Jack Lanza, the agent, says, "Why are you wearing blue underneath your ref pants?" I said, because I didn't expect. Yeah. He says, maybe you want to start wearing black. And there you go.
Yep.
The little things.
Light gray for me. So it was a terrible, terrible choice. And I actually got into the back and was a little ridiculous about it because I was excited that the cameras hadn't picked it up. I went to the production office immediately and was like, "Did you guys see it? Did you guys see it?" And they're like, "See what? What are you talking about?" I'm like, "Oh, great, look." And I bent over and showed them what happened. And of course, one of my good brothers was standing there with his cell phone recording me bending over like that. So that video's out there floating around somewhere.
Yeah. Thank goodness when it happened to me, the age of the cell phone video was not in existence yet.
Right. And for the record, I'll call you Jimmy as much as you like, as long as you're calling me Odie. Are we Odie? On par with that one? Yeah.
No, that's cool. Cool. I'll try and remember that.
Yeah.
Too many ref bumps. You know what I mean?
Right. Let's just dive straight into it.
Sure.
I know that you have told your story many times before, but I do like to kind of just give a linear timeline of when you started to where you are now. So if you don't mind, let's talk a little bit about your origins in professional wrestling as a fan and how you got involved. We've heard a bit of the Tunney story before, but let's go ahead and tell it again a bit.
Sure. A huge wrestling fan. As a kid growing up, we were blessed here in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. You always have to put the province in front of it.
Sure.
It's just like Calgary, Alberta, Canada.
Yeah, I can't hear Alberta or Calgary without hearing the other ones and Inland Storm's voice.
Exactly. Yeah. So, but we got so much wrestling on television from so many different promotions, because we get the Buffalo affiliate stations here. So, we'd have Maple Leaf Wrestling on our local thing, but we'd get, I forget. Oh my goodness! From Montreal, we'd get wrestling from Montreal on Saturday nights after hockey night in Canada. There'd be wrestling from Vancouver, Pacific Wrestling, and we'd get Mid-Atlantic Wrestling from the Buffalo affiliate. So we were
just
inundated
immersed in it all the time.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. Oh, and of course, AWA wrestling we'd get on another local affiliate and stuff like that. So like weekends for me were tied up with hockey, NHL hockey, the Toronto Maple Leafs, and pro wrestling. And I attended my first live pro wrestling event, was an outdoor stadium show at Varsity Stadium here in Toronto. And the main event was Terry Funk versus the Sheik, the original Sheik.
Amazing. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. And me and my buddy Billy, my next door neighbor, we snuck down onto the floor, onto the grass, on the grass, and got down there nice and close and watched it up close. And, it was amazing. Then when I became old enough to drive, they used to run Maple Leaf Gardens here every 3 weeks. So I would go to Maple Leaf Gardens every 3 weeks, and I would bring my camera with me, and I would take pictures. And, for myself.
Were you doing something with those photos there, sir?
Eventually, later on, as I discovered, I went to the Toronto office, Jack Tunney's office, and I spoke to Norm Kimber. He was the ring announcer / Jack's right-hand man.
Sure.
And I said, listen, I come to every show. Is there a possible way I can get floor seats as close to the ring as possible for every show? And he says, absolutely. It'd be equivalent to season tickets.
Yeah.
But you cannot, if you miss a show, then you lose these seats. And, of course,
that's fair. I mean, if you're there.
And I said that, yeah.
Yeah.
So Maple Leaf Gardens in Toronto, for those who remember, used to have this ramp that was level with the ring that went from the locker room. They'd come up the stairs and then walk through, instead of walking through the crowd.
Out, so you're on this like raised level. Yeah, yeah.
Yes. And my seats were second row ringside, right beside that elevated ramp. So I used to get some amazing shots.
Yeah,
just
absolutely. Guys
standing there posing, playing with the crowd. And what I discovered was there was this, photo developing place that had a special that would double your prints for $1. So I'd get 2 sets of prints, and I'd come back to the next show and I'd sell that second set of prints for $2 a pop. So basically what it was doing was it was paying for my film. It was paying for my developing. It was paying for my tickets to the show. It was paying gas, whatever, parking. I was fueling my wrestling habit by selling pictures. And then I got caught by a young man by the name of Elio Zarlenga, who was working for Jack Tunney.
Right.
And he was taking pictures ringside for the magazine and for the program and all that sort of stuff. And he comes up to me outside the garden.
Find this kid who's doing his job. Yeah.
Well, doing something that technically you shouldn't be doing. And, and I'm not thinking like that. I'm just a young adult.
You're just taking pictures, trying to make a buck.
Yeah. And he says, can I see your pictures? I said, sure. He says, and I said, $2 a pop. He says, oh, really? He says, you can't do that. I said, can't do what? He says, you can't sell these. I said, why? Who are you? And then he explains who he is. And I'm like, oh. He says, I'll tell you what. Just move down. Don't do it right in front of the venue, Maple Leaf.
Yeah, don't sell them right here where everybody's just going to walk out and catch you. Yeah.
Yeah, just move down the street a little bit and do it out there. Just, he says, but you do take some pretty good pictures. And then I ran into him at a few local shows and we became friends. And he says, you know what, I'm going to introduce you to Jack and maybe he could bring you on board and you could be a photographer inside the barricade there, taking pictures and helping out.
Yeah.
And I thought that was so cool. So I went and I met Jack, and then Jack just said, look, we don't need a photographer right now. We'll find something for the kid to do. And it ended up being, I come to the first show that I was scheduled to do something for. And, I'm there at Maple Leaf Gardens nice and early. And Jack is basically handing me the keys to his Fleetwood Cadillac. It says, go to the Marriott by the airport and pick up Hulk Hogan and his wife. And I didn't want to freak out.
Yeah, of course.
You know what I mean?
Sure.
And it was like, okay. So, I go to the,
sure will.
Yeah. So I go to the airport. He gives me the information, Terry Boulay. So he gives me the information, excuse me. And I call up to his room and I said, hello, Mr. Hulk. I said, my name is Jim Korderas and I'm here to drive you down to Maple Leaf Gardens. He says, okay, I'll be down in about 5 minutes. And, and it started there and he was pretty cool. And I'm like, man, I'm freaking out while I'm driving, but at the same time, I'm trying to stay, calm and stuff. So that was my first experience. I was basically a driver / gopher / whatever needed to be done.
You're the runaround guy.
Yeah. So that was late 85-ish, I want to say, somewhere in there, and did that for about a year.
Sure.
And then Pat Patterson one day, and I should mention too that they ran Maple Leaf Gardens every 3 weeks, but the day after, when Jack became affiliated with WWF at the time, every 3 weeks on the Monday after the Sunday at Maple Leaf Gardens, they would film 3 weeks worth of wrestling challenge in the Brantford Civic Center, which is about an hour and 15, hour, 20 minutes outside of Toronto. So myself and Elio Zarlanga, the guy who got me introduced and got me into the business.
The photos, yeah.
Yeah. Him and I would have these, what we called mini buses, which were like maxi vans or whatever, maxi vans. And we would escort the talent too. Like one of us would take the baby faces, one of us would take the heels. And we'd make trips into those separate at the time. Yeah. Yeah.
Which is nice.
And shuttle them out to the TV tapings and stuff like that. And then one day, Pat, like this, I want to say this is late 86 sometime. It's been almost a year now or whatever. Sure. And Pat says, "Hey, Jack, we got the kid here. He's there. He sits around. He waits for us to finish the show before he starts." He says, "Why don't we use him? Maybe we can make him a referee."
Yeah, you got the body here. You might as well put him in. Something. Yeah.
And Jack says to Pat, he says, "Yeah, but do we want to smarten the kid up?" And Pat's like, "But he's in the locker room with the boys. How much more can you smarten him up to, like he's backstage and he's interacting with the boys and all this stuff."
Right. But until somebody really tells you, like, how much can you really know at the time? Like wrestling's a completely different climate and community and everything. Like for the folks that are going to be listening to this, that maybe a little younger, that don't understand that, please kind of paint a picture a little bit of like what being smartened up to was like at the time.
Well, just knowing that the business is, as we call it, a work. And that, there is a cooperation amongst the wrestlers to put on the best possible show they can.
Right.
And what I discovered later, which we'll get into, the referee does play a part in that. But getting back to the original story, I was friendly with the guys at the time, especially guys like SD Jones and Tony Atlas. And there's a whole bunch of guys that I was really friendly with. So Pat comes up to me and says, "Okay, here, go out and get yourself black sneakers, black pants, a blue shirt, and a black bow tie, and carry it with you at all times." And I didn't know, which I did. I didn't know enough though to ask questions.
Yeah.
To the other referees.
Sure.
So one day in early 1987, here in Newmarket, Ontario, Canada, Chief Jay Strongbow, who was the agent for the match, says, "Jimmy, do you have your ref gear with you?" And I said, "Yes, I do, Chief." He says, "Put it on. You're reffing tonight." I said, "Okay." I said, "Which match?" He says, SD Jones versus the Red Demon, who was Jose Luis Rivera.
Sure. So at least you're in there with at least one guy that you're pretty familiar with.
So I go to SD and I said, "Listen, hey, SD, guess what? I'm refereeing your match tonight." He says, "Oh, great." I said, "I have never refereed a match before." He says, "You listen to me. I will talk you through it." Now, of course, I was very robotic. Domo arigato, Mr. Roboto, for those of you who remember that song.
Thank you very much, Mr. Roboto.
Yes, but he talked me through that match. And that's when, we got to the back afterwards and he started explaining certain things to me. And he said, "Listen, when you got guys like Earl, when you got guys like Timmy White, when you got the other refs, talk to them, ask them questions, and stuff like that. And also ask us. Yeah. We'll tell you what we need from you and stuff like that." So again, there was a learning process and that's where it began. And then since that day till the day I actually left WWE, every day the one thing I learned far more important than anything else is never stop being a sponge and absorbing and learning, because you never, ever learn everything. There's always something, that makes you go,
those aha moments that you get in those, like as you pass along the years. That's something that I've heard Charles Robinson say a lot as well, as, if you ever stop learning, you're dying, you always have to have that just endless, everything that I can take in. You never know where you're going to get it from. You never know what kind of interaction is going to lead you to having that moment where something clicks in your brain and it's like, oh, okay, now everything makes sense. So you're reffing now. When was the phase that you went through where it shifted from, this is something that I'm trying to do and something that maybe you're being successful at initially, but like, when did you feel like now I am a WWF referee? Like, obviously you had the job, but like, when did it really feel like it sank in and things were going well?
Again, it took a while because, at the time, not only were the full-timers at the time, David Hebner, and like I said, Timmy White and guys like that, but there were also every area region had their local refs that worked, and that was basically
Sure.
me working the Canadian territory.
Yeah.
And and I would sneak over to Buffalo, and maybe I shouldn't be saying this, but at the time,
I don't think
obviously,
there's a statute of limitations for getting across the border, or is
no,
there?
but going across and working,
Oh yeah,
you know
yeah,
what
yeah.
I mean? So that was an issue. So
Get that 5-year ban.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So once things got ironed out a little bit, because I was escorting Jack to television tapings that were close enough for him to drive. Like now they were taking the TV tapings on the road.
Mhm.
So one of them was in Glens Falls, New York. The Superstars was going to be in Glens Falls, New York, and Challenger is going to be in Lake Placid. And he wanted to drive the loop and stuff like that. But at the time, he had some eye surgery done. So he asked me if I would drive him and Billy Red Lyons, who was for the Canadian television,
Mhm.
would do the backstage. He was basically Mean Gene and did the backstage interviews
Sure.
for Canada up here, and also a wrestling legend up here in Canada.
Mhm.
So he says, Jimmy, do you mind driving us down? I said, no, absolutely. Of course I'll pay you to do it and stuff like that. He says, but bring your ref gear with you.
Yeah.
I said, are you sure it's going to be okay? He said, I said, it's okay. Bring your ref gear with you.
Yeah.
So we drive down to Glens Falls,
okay,
New
it's
York.
probably okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So we get to Glens Falls, New York. And of course, run into everybody there. And Pat said, Jimmy, you got your refs here? He says, put it on. You're going to ref on TV tonight. I'm like, okay, cool.
Sure.
And then, 3 weeks worth of television. And in the third hour, I referee a match with the one-man gang against Dave Studemeyer. And
Okay.
Chief says, get with the gang. He'll tell you what he needs you to do.
Mhm.
I said, okay. So gang tells me, he says, I'm going to hit my 747 slam on him. You count 1, 2, 3. When you go to raise my hand, I'll not hard, but I'll shove you out of the way, pick him up and give it to him again. You get in my face and you give me crap. You just get on me.
Give me the
He says,
business.
yeah. He says, then I'll hook you and give it to you. I
Have
said,
you taken a bump yet at this point?
pretty much not.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
definitely not a 747. Let's put it that way.
Sure.
So I said, okay. He says, are you okay with that? I said, yes, sir. Whatever you need me to do, I'm going to do. I just hope I do it. He says, you'll be fine. Just don't overthink it. So
Yeah.
we got through it. And the only thing I thought in my head when I was laying there after taking the 747 is don't move. Whatever you do, don't move, because this is a devastating move that he ends matches with. I'm a referee, so I'm not as tough as a wrestler, so I should be like out cold. So I waited for them to come and drag me out of the ring, and they did. And if Danny Davis was cursing me on the way back because he said I was dead weighting him on purpose, like I was trying
Brother,
to rib
I'm just
them.
trying to sell.
Yeah, exactly. In my mind, I'm like I'm trying to sell, but he thought I was ribbing them.
Sure.
So he's got me by the back of the pants and he's wedging me as we go. So we get to the back and he says, and Pat comes up. He says, "Are you okay?" I said, "Yeah." How did it look? He said, "It looked good. Are you okay?" I said, "Yes, sir. I'm fine." He says, "All right, good. Thank you." And I'm just wondering, back then, was that a test? Was it not a test?
Yeah, I feel like that was probably his opportunity to see if you were gonna go on and on about it, since obviously you went into the ring not expecting something to happen, and then something happened and it went over okay. And obviously I'm sure it didn't feel great, but you weren't injured or anything like that. So I don't know, Pat, obviously you have a lot more experience than I do, but I feel like that was probably one of those talks that was like, is he gonna complain? Can we keep him around? Yeah.
Right. Later on you think that. At the time I wasn't thinking that, but completely 100%. But I was again thinking, okay, why was I put into this spot as someone who I thought somebody more experienced would be probably a better choice, but
sure,
there's got to be a reason to it anyway. But that, for lack of a better term, got me over with them, and they said, okay, here's a guy who's willing to go in there and do things, whatever we ask him to do, and learn. So, yeah.
And that was kind of off to the races for you. It really felt like
it got
your place.
Yeah, it got it started. It took a while because now you go through the process of applying for your proper working papers and that sort of stuff. So it took a little while.
Gotcha. So now,
but got me there.
Sure. What kind of years are we talking about now? Obviously, you're talking about One Man Gang. I'm sure we're in the at least late 80s to early 90s. He's not a team yet or anything like that. Are you
right?
Are you traveling now into the States and doing TV and everything? We've got Raw coming up any minute. What's your experience in those transitional years, before TV was a big thing?
Yeah, at first it was more along the lines of, okay, we'll use you when you come down, because Jack, who was president of WWF at the time, Jack Tunney,
Right.
President Jack Tunney,
Right.
when he drove down to TV, they just said, make sure you come with him, because I guess they didn't want to fly me into all these places.
Sure.
So for the first, I want to say, that was, like you said, late 80s. So even into the early 90s, I only did TV when it was convenient for me to be there. For lack of a better term. And then, once I became a member of the ring crew as well, now they said, well, listen, if we bring him in, he's on the ring crew and he's refereeing as well. So there you go.
You get two birds, double duty. Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly.
It's one less body that you need in the building.
Exactly.
Sure. So you're doing that for a number of years. Let's talk about how this transitions into TV as we know it now. What was your experience with things shifting into, like, what was the learning experience like? Obviously you're on camera and everything, but like, was there a big shift in how you were told to officiate the way that you were doing things once it became like what it is today? I mean, obviously it's not quite there in the 90s, but you get what I'm saying.
Right. No, absolutely. Yes, because, well, the biggest thing is cameras and getting in front of cameras and try to avoid, blocking shots, because especially in the WWE, where at that time you had two handheld cameras at ringside on the floor. You had two hard cameras as well, an upper one and a lower one. And, you learn to work what we call the horseshoe.
Right.
Yeah, you try not as best as possible not to cross in front of the camera like my hand is doing right now.
Don't show them your back.
And you kind of work the three sides of the ring. Where at a live event or house show, whatever you want to call it, you just work the match like there wasn't
you would anywhere else. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. So that was the hardest part, and also transitioning from originally on TV getting cues, the time cues you'd get from the timekeeper via hand signals.
Yeah.
So you'd have to look at him to get like, okay, there's 5 to go. There's like 4, and if stretch it. There'd be like, let's go. We got to go home kind of thing and stuff like that. And then we got the IFBs,
the earpieces. Yeah, absolutely.
The earphone, where they could talk to us and tell us exactly what they want. So that was a plus, and also
a bit of a minus, a bit of a distraction.
Only because at times, depending at certain times, somebody would get on there and start talking to you and telling you, okay, tell the guys this, and you're on TV and you're thinking, now I have to be discreet in relaying this message that, So you had to figure out ways to do it without looking like,
like I'm walking up to this guy and telling him what the production office just told me to tell him. Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly. And so you try to do it in a way that looks like you're in the natural, you're checking on someone or you're whatever. And just be careful not to be too loud, because those handheld cameras at ringside can pick up a lot of stuff.
Absolutely. That's something that I feel like not a lot of folks really understand about, like specifically television refereeing. Like I try to explain to people from time to time what it's like to actually be mic'd up and trying to be aware of everything that's going on and reffing at the same time. You've got the production office is telling you things in your ear. If they leave the mic on, you're hearing everything that they're saying back there anyway, which is insanity. Not to mention, like, you're hearing the commentary in the room that you're in and over the mic, over the television that is in the room of the production office. You've got the fans, you're hearing them. Like, it's so much audio input.
Yeah. If I could tell you a real quick story.
Yeah, absolutely. That's
because sometimes the boys get a little bit annoyed when you're relaying too many messages.
Yes.
And this was actually WrestleMania.
Okay.
WrestleMania 21 in LA. And it was a wonderful match that I was privileged to referee between Eddie Guerrero, the late great Eddie Guerrero, and Rey Mysterio.
Yes.
And they're having their match, and Dean Malenko was the agent for the match. And he wasn't giving them a lot of, just basically counting down the time and stuff like that. But the story of the match was Eddie, in his attempts to defeat Rey. Every time Rey would kick out of something that Eddie did, Eddie would increasingly throughout the match slowly become a little more aggravated,
angrier and angrier. Yeah.
Angrier and angrier. Yes. So I get the first few. He says, okay, Dean comes on headset and says, tell Eddie to show a little more frustration. All right.
He can
So
do
I, so I kind of leaned in, and as I'm doing my duties, and of course I preface it by saying Dean says,
yeah.
because I don't want him to
I'm
think it's
not
coming from
giving
me.
you notes, brother. The
Yeah.
office is, yeah.
Dean says to show a little more frustration. Okay. So we get to another false finish. Ray kicks out. Eddie shows a little frustration, and Dean comes back on. He says, tell Eddie he's got to show him a little more frustration. So I said, Eddie, Dean says. So this goes on a couple of times.
Yeah.
And it got to the point, and Eddie shoots me a look, and I went, uh-oh. Now I'm getting the look, and the shoot look.
Yeah.
So it happens one more time. They go into this big, huge false finish, and Eddie, Ray kicks out. Eddie goes, oh. And then Dean says, tell him to just really show a lot of frustration. I'm like, do I or don't I? Now I'm in the thought process.
Do I listen to The Office or do I listen? Yeah.
Yeah. So I go, I'm going to try. And I just leaned in, and all I said was, Eddie, Dean's, and he turns to me and he says, right in the middle of WrestleMania, shut up.
Yeah. I'm trying to focus.
So I'm thinking
WrestleMania. Yeah.
So in my mind, it was like, okay, shutting the F up.
Yeah.
And, of course, there was another instruction that came later on, and I kind of leaned in and did some
miming.
Yes, pretty much, for lack of a better term.
Yeah.
My mouth was moving, but nothing was coming out. So at least to make it look like I was relaying the message.
I hear you. But, I'm listening to you, but I'm not going to get shot on by Eddie Guerrero at WrestleMania. Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly. And, after the match, Eddie apologized for it, but also said, I'm in the middle of, putting my stuff together. And I said, no, I totally get it. You don't have to apologize to me. Everything's cool. Eddie and I were cool anyways. It was a cool relationship. I miss him terribly.
It's amazing the kind of relationships that moments like that can actually lead to, or, increase as well. I've had an experience where it was just checking on a wrestler. I didn't have the office telling me or anything, but I do like to check people after like every big bump just to make sure that they're alive, they're hurting themselves intentionally. And I go down and I check on one of the boys, and it's like the third time I've asked him, but the first time I've reffed him and he's not used to me, and he just shut the leave me alone. And it turns into this whole thing in the back. But then later on that night at dinner, we talked it out, we squashed it, everything was good, and now we have a good relationship.
Awesome.
It's amazing how it leads to those things. We're in the 2000s. We're talking about Eddie. We're talking about WrestleMania. Let's talk a little bit about some of your favorite experiences with your time with WWE, the mega conglomerate experience. Like, what was your experience like over those years?
Oh, it was incredible. And I know it's cliche to say that I was honored and blessed to get to work with some of the biggest stars. You look at the guys I got to work with.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously from the Hulk Hogans and the Randy Savages and the Mr. Perfect Kurt Hennings and stuff.
The 2000s being so associated with all the Canadian
Rock,
being go ahead, please.
Sorry. Yeah. Rock, Austin, Taker, I'm a Taker guy. Yeah. What can I say? I'm a Taker, Eddie and legends like that in the Hart family, like you mentioned. But getting to be involved in certain things, like accidentally, believe it or not, getting involved in that referee strike angle that happened.
Okay.
which didn't start off as me being the scab official, but that happened purely by, just happenstance. I had just gotten married. And I came back from my honeymoon. I had taken 2 weeks off. JR was nice enough to give me 2 weeks off.
Very kind.
So I get back from the honeymoon, and I'm, hey guys, what's up in there? Hey, way to go, congrats, and all this stuff. And I run into Hunter, and Hunter used to call me. His nickname for me was Corduroy.
Okay.
So, hey, Corduroy, welcome back. I said, thanks, Trips. I appreciate it. And he says, oh, nice that you're back, but too bad you're out of a job now. And I was just getting acquainted with the referee strike angle that was going on while I was away. Sure. And so I just turned to him as a joke. I said, I can't afford to go on strike. I just got married. I got to keep working. And he went, yeah, I get, oh, wait a minute. Come with me. So he brings me over and he goes, hey, JR, Jimmy just back from his thing. What if we do this whole thing where he can't go on strike and he's the one guy who, and that's how it happened. It just, just by blurting out, like kidding around in the back, ended up turning into an angle.
Yeah. I mean, that's how some of the best moments come up. It's just an organic process of like, oh, light bulb. That's a really good idea. Why don't we do that?
Yep.
That
Yep.
kind of reminds me
Yep.
of a little bit of the way that you have talked about, you were told that you were going to be doing the Edge and the Undertaker, main event and everything. That was just kind of an organic, like you were given no. Well, why don't you tell the story? Tell us about how you ended up in that match.
No, I was, I don't want to say labeled, but for some reason they preferred having me whenever there was a ladder matches, those the TLC matches, stuff like that.
Yeah.
For some reason, so those are the matches that I'm usually scheduled for.
Yeah,
when
it almost
comes up.
became
Like you
your
go back to
expertise
WrestleMania
after all the TLC
right,
and everything. Yeah.
Right. But going into WrestleMania 24, the main event, Edge versus Undertaker, I even remember the town. We're in Little Rock, Arkansas, and I walk into the locker room and I'm saying hello to everybody and stuff like that. And of course, Edge and I, fellow Canadians, buddies. Edge, sir, what's up? He says, Jimmy, how you doing? He says, come with me. I need to talk to you. I said, oh, okay. What's going on? He says, Taker and I were talking, and we're requesting you to referee our match at WrestleMania. I said, really? So then he took me to Taker. He says, yeah, we want you to do our match at Mania. And I'm like, okay, whatever you guys want. Now, I'm super excited, but at the same time, now I'm like,
yeah,
okay,
talk about the pressure that you feel at this moment. Yeah.
No, it's kind of like, this is awesome. I'm going to referee the main event at WrestleMania between Edge and Undertaker. Again, two of my favorite people.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I don't want to mess this up. Now that's what's going through my mind. I can't help myself now. I said, I better not mess this up. Oh my goodness. But it was, if it wasn't for them, I would have been in a completely different match at WrestleMania. Yeah. But they're the ones who, and probably for lack of a better term, biggest, highest profile match of my career.
Of course. And I mean, obviously, it's made it onto the cover of the 3 Count and everything.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about what that, you've mentioned you've been in several WrestleMania matches, obviously, but like, tell us a little bit about what that feels like, what it felt like to be in that match between the two of them. Tell us a few of the moments that you experienced and what really like stands out in your memory from that night.
Oh, it was incredible. Just walking out there, because, obviously we don't get the entrance, sure. But at the same time, when you're walking out there, heading out to the ring, you're looking at that massive sea of humanity. Again, I'm using cliches here, but that's me. That's how I work.
But I mean, that's what it is. It's a sea of humanity. Yeah, absolutely.
It's amazing. And it's intimidating too, as well. And now I'm standing in the ring and I get to watch those two entrances from the ring and just say, how freaking cool is this?
Yeah.
And then I'm sitting there and I'm thinking about all the stuff that's going through my head. Now I have to remember this, I have to remember that. But at the same time, as I've mentioned many times during my refereeing rants, I want to be there for them, because this match is not about me and me getting to referee a main event at WrestleMania. This match is the main event between these two guys. I'm there to help them tell their story.
Yes.
Without being a distraction, unless, which is the referee's job. Your job is to help the guys tell their story, and you are not noticed unless you need to be noticed.
Yeah.
Which leads to later on in the match when I take the ref bump. And it's funny because the day before we're at the hotel and we're talking about the match with the agent and everybody and stuff like that. And, of course, Jimmy, we want to bump you in this match. Are you cool with that? I said,
yeah,
whatever you want to do. He says, but we want to bump you in a fashion that takes you out of the match, so you're not there for the finish. I said, that's absolutely fine.
I got to be there in the beginning and in the body of the match. Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly. He says, so Taker says, how are you with taking a big boot? And I'm thinking to myself, two things are going through my mind right now. I'm going, this is the coolest thing ever, taking a big boot at WrestleMania.
Sure.
And I just hope it looks good. That's all. I just want to look like it. I want it to look like it takes my head off. That's all. He says, so I told him I'm cool with taking the big boot and being out of the match. And then the conversation came to, well, we need a referee to run down to make the 3 count. And we all looked at each other, all 4 of us, Edge, Taker, myself, and Michael P.S. Hayes, who was the agent. And everybody to a man said, Charles.
Yeah.
Charles was the only SmackDown blue-shirted guy that we thought could make the run. First of all, down that big long ramp without blowing up.
Flowing locks and everything.
Yeah, it looked cool. So Charles got to be the guy. But see, another thing that adds to the cool moment, it's not only getting to referee a main event match at WrestleMania, but to take a big boot from Taker in it as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I was in heaven. Let's put it that way. Then after the match, as you know, it was customary to go and thank the guys and say, was there anything, and Edge said, no, everything was cool. And then, I went over and talked to Taker, and I'm not ashamed to admit it, man. I had a tear in my eye, man, going over to Taker and thanking him and everything. And again, I've had some really cool moments in my life, but that was, as far as my wrestling career, the coolest.
Yeah, I mean, that's totally understandable and expected with a situation like that. Like, I've only very briefly even had like a glimmer of an experience with WWE. I've done a little bit of extra work, things like that. Just standing on the ramp coming out of Gorilla and seeing all of those people and seeing the ring down there. That is a visceral experience that is unlike anything else, that like you don't see that on television very often. They don't show that perspective very often. So like to just have that moment, let alone being in front of 100,000 people getting kicked in the face by the, arguably most famous wrestler of all time. Yeah, it's understandable that you would have a tear in your eye and that you would be just so moved and emotionally changed by such an experience.
Absolutely. And definitely.
We don't really get to hear too often about what the experience leading up to something like that is. Obviously, you spoke a little bit about how you guys met in the hotel the day before. What kind of like preparation or notice were you given, if any, leading up to before that conversation in the hotel room? Did you guys practice anything? Did you like talk about things beforehand? Were you given any kind of information, or was it?
It was just exactly that. Nothing was practiced. It was all just talked about. This is what, this is the plan. This is what the finish is going to be. This is what we're going to do. And it's funny that you mentioned that, the night before, early morning, because it was like, I want to say 2 a.m. ish, 2:30 a.m. I couldn't. I was wide awake. I couldn't. And I had a bad habit back then, if you know what I mean, the old nicotine habit. So I went outside to hide somewhere and, get one in, so to speak. And, and Ken Kennedy sees me outside. He says, "What are you doing?" I said, I can't sleep. I'm nervous. He says, "No, you'll be fine. Stop. Don't be nervous," and stuff like that. So it was nice of him to come up and try to calm me down. Eventually I did get a few hours sleep, but man, didn't get a lot. Let's put it that way, the night before. And like I said, I know there's this misconception that guys like to practice their moves ahead of time and stuff like that. It was,
which is not something I've ever experienced.
They just basically said, "Here, we'd like to do something like this, and then we'll get to here, and then I'll get some heat on you," and you know what I mean, that kind of stuff, as opposed to like, okay, let's choreograph. Let's
go into a ring and like walk through everything.
Yeah, exactly.
Obviously, with the company, you've had an opportunity to see, I'm assuming, the whole world at this point. Like, where are some of the best places that you've had an opportunity to travel to?
Oh man, I've been lucky. I wasn't there when they went to Russia. That would have been cool.
But isn't that the like horror story like flight though? Isn't that the one where like everybody went down or something?
Yeah, the real flight from hell, which I should get into, because everybody talks about the flight back from the UK with Brock and Perfect and all that stuff that was going on, and all the shenanigans, and that was nothing. This was just a landing to refuel in Russia. This wasn't an actual show being done in Russia. I want to say the town was called Petrolovsk or something like that. It was, anyways, us flying up through Alaska and down, and let me put it this way. It took 3 attempts for them to land in a blizzard in an older chartered airplane. It was not a good, and even on the way home, we had an engine problem and had to stop in Cairns, Australia. Anyways,
these are the things that I think about when I am considering, like, okay, do I want to chase my dreams? Like, do I want to put myself in a position where I could be on a flight that goes down tomorrow?
No, I know, I understand that, but at the same time, if you think that, it just ruins every experience. Like I mentioned, Australia is one of the coolest places I've been. I loved Australia. I was surprised. I enjoyed South Africa because, you don't think of it that way.
Sure.
Cape Town, South Africa is really cool. And of course, all over Europe and places like that. But I think the coolest thing as far as an international travel thing that we did, I would have to say probably the tribute to the troops in Iraq, actually going into Iraq and getting to do that live in front of the guys there and staying in one of Saddam's palaces.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It was like,
I mean, how many times are you going to have that kind of an experience in your life? Yeah.
Exactly. You know, like sleeping on cots, but who cares? That's what
the palace. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It was pretty much stripped of all furniture. There was one king size bed, but Big Show commandeered the one in our room. So
gotcha.
since Taker had the one in the other one. Yes, exactly. As he should.
Which I actually wanted to say thank you so much to you and to everybody else that took part in those. My dad was actually deployed over there at the time while that was going on. So thank you so much for taking the time to go into such a dangerous area and try and provide some entertainment and make them forget about what's going on.
Well, thank you to your dad for providing that service and it, as much as people say it was a dangerous area, we never felt it.
True.
We felt well protected. We felt safe, hard to explain, being out in that sandy soccer stadium with two helicopters flying overhead in the middle of a match and stuff like that. And it was like, wow, this is just unreal.
Something that like you'll never really be able to describe to another person to get them to really know what it feels like to be there in that heat with those, like you said, the helicopters flying around, just thousands and thousands of troops. It's amazing.
It's amazing. It is amazing.
Let's talk a little bit about how you transitioned out of WWE. What was the catalyst for that? Were you feeling like it was just kind of your time, or were you looking at other opportunities? What led you to that?
It was kind of like a series of things. I was transitioning from refereeing. I was starting to learn a little bit of the backstage stuff, like the timing of the show and stuff like that.
Sure.
And unfortunately, my father got sick, and I had to take some time off to take care of certain things, with him. And it was taking a little longer than expected. So I was kind of like in and out, but more out than in.
Yeah.
And then
and the ball keeps rolling no matter who's there and who isn't.
Exactly. And they were looking at the time to downsize. And, I remember it was, I want to say January of 2009. I get a call from talent relations and, they just said, hey, we're looking to downsize. And because of your situation, I hate to put it this way, but you're one of the people we're looking at.
Yeah.
At least letting go for now. And excuse me. And the door will always be open for a return. And I said, well, I appreciate that. Thank you. And whatever. And of course, we'll take care of you for 90 days or 3 months or whatever the case may be, but we'll be in touch. And I said, okay, cool. And then that time had passed and my dad had passed away. And I just had a different feeling that I want to spend that 250 days on the road anymore and stuff like that. And not that I didn't love the industry. I love the business and I still do.
You spent 20 years doing that and creating some of the most amazing moments and memories in wrestling history with these people.
Right. And, but I figured, let me just take a little break, some time away and see how things go. And then, maybe, like you said, the door was open. I can contact them and see what happens. Sure. During that time, I met a guy by the name of Arda Ocal, who was working at The Score at the time, because The Score was the station that aired all the WWE programming up here in Canada.
Right.
And they had a little show called Right After Wrestling, which aired,
right after wrestling.
Yes. So after the replay, because they would show it on Monday nights, Raw, but on Tuesday they would show a replay earlier in the afternoon with a half-hour show afterwards. Mauro Ranallo was on it. Renee Paquette was on it.
Sure. So all these great Canadian names that are about to launch off and become big broadcast journalists.
So he brought me on board to do the radio version of Right After Wrestling on Monday night. So we would watch Raw at the studio, at the Score studio, and then go live on radio and do it. And I was getting to like it. This is something I think I can get into. And then a position opened up on the television side when Mauro left. The Score. So now it was myself, Arda, and Renee doing the television version of that show. And then WWE became a little more hands-on with it and said, well, we don't like you calling it Right After Wrestling, because Right After Wrestling was RAW.
Oh, yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah, short form. So they came up with the name Aftermath.
Okay.
So it started at the Score, and then when Sportsnet took over the broadcasting rights here in Canada for the WWE, they took the show with it. So we, continued the show on Sportsnet, and it had a pretty good 12-year run. Unfortunately, it's on an indefinite hiatus right now because of the current situation with the pandemic, but that got me started into broadcasting it, and man, I love it. And as you can tell here today, I love to talk.
Sure. I mean, you've had these experiences that give you this like a whole nother side of information and knowledge and experience that like you offer to the audience that like nobody else can bring to the table. So it makes sense that they would have you on for that.
Well, thank you for saying that. And I think it is a little bit unique because, a referee's perspective, when do you usually get a referee's perspective? And again, as I say, we're not the stars. We're like, I made this reference about a week or so ago, and somebody said they loved it. It's like everybody knows who KC is, but nobody knows who the Sunshine Band is.
Sure.
But there's no KC without the Sunshine Band.
Absolutely.
You're
Sunshine Band. Yeah.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Absolutely. What led you into wanting to write the book? And then in addition to that, what made you feel like you really needed to, like, it's very clear that you want to give back to the referee community. Obviously, you had the video series, you had the book, you've had Ask the Ref. Like, what has made you feel so motivated to want to give back to the people that have come after you?
Well, I didn't know the right way to do it, but to be perfectly honest, all the credit for the book goes to my wife, Audra. She was the one who said, all these experiences, all these stories, all this stuff you've got locked up in there, you should put it down on paper so people could know your story. And I said, me, it's like, who wants to read my story? And
sure.
She goes, you'd be surprised because this is a different perspective, coming at it from a different, slant than it would from an actual wrestler,
absolutely.
And it is an interesting story in her eyes. And then, obviously when, speaking with Arda and other people in the industry, they said, yeah, you've got some stories, go for it. And I said, well, maybe I will. So I started jotting it down. It became a project. And then, I was thinking, who do I present it to? And I knew that ECW Press up here in Canada, does a lot of wrestling material.
Yeah.
But then I had to figure out, well, you have to have somebody, write the foreword for your book.
Who am I going to get?
Like, who am I going to get to write the foreword? And I said, well, it's Canada, it's Canadian. Let me talk to Edge. Let me talk to Adam and see what he says, if he feels up to it. So, I buzzed him and I said, listen, here's the deal. I'm writing a book, blah, blah, blah. It's not one of those, throw everybody under the bus books, but would you be interested in maybe possibly writing a little foreword for it? Oh yeah. And then like a couple of days later, he sends me, is this all right? I said, are you kidding? This is fantastic. Thank you.
And you're just floored by the whole thing.
Yeah. But like I said, all the encouragement, all the backing, all the credit for all that work goes to my wife, who really was,
the motivation behind it. And
exactly. Absolutely.
Pushed you to take the steps that you needed to take, which thank you to Audra. We really appreciate it. The book is fantastic. I would tell this to anybody. It's not just because you're sitting here and, it's on display behind you and everything, but like, I really enjoyed it. It's a great read. It is available on Amazon. I was not told to plug the book at all, but I mean, it's one of the better reads that I've had from my perspective, obviously, because like referees, we don't exactly have a lot of resources to help us learn and help us answer the questions that we have. There's not a lot of referee trainers around the world or anything like that. So it was definitely something that was very much a necessity and something that I enjoyed. So thank you for that.
No, thank you for saying that. I appreciate it. It's something I like because actually one of the things I did before leaving WWE was when they still had Florida Championship Wrestling, and they had me go down to there because they were, for lack of a better term, they were trying out a lot of young talent, and they had brought in like 5 or 6 referees as well. So they said we got like 5 or 6 referees coming in. We go down there and evaluate them.
Yeah, you've got like Rod and Mark and Justin, I think, and like Jason.
Yeah. So so now thinking about it, that would be something that would be cool, that I can hopefully one day go down and work with with young refs and help them learn the way I did.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
was that the first experience that you had like hands-on, like one-on-one, like trying to teach other referees and things like that? Have you thought about like taking on students or anything like that?
Yeah, but it's different because as a full-time gig, only if it's like some place like the Performance Center, you know what I mean? That's
sure.
the only,
Yeah, I mean,
you know,
why sell yourself short, right?
Yeah, but at the same time, it was cool because when we had young referees coming up, like not only was I still learning from some of the other guys, but I was able to pass on some of that knowledge to some of the young guys that were coming through.
Sure. More in the like kind of like journeyman, like apprenticeship kind of environment that I feel like refereeing has kind of had for the last like 20, 30 years or so. It's more so like you're taking in knowledge and answering questions and things like that while you're doing it, like you're saying.
I just hope that this generation's young referees, not talking about you, but you.
I am one of this generation's young referees.
But you are definitely a lot like the ones that I'm going to reference now, which are the ones who think they know more than they actually do, and kind of don't take that constructive criticism or advice to heart from those who
let me just go ahead and publicly apologize for some of the members of Zebra Talk.
No.
We unfortunately have some folks who think that they know the answers to things, and then we are graciously afforded the opportunity to have somebody like yourself come in and tell us what the actual correct answer is. And unfortunately, every once in a while, people think that it's a matter of debate, and then those people are either explained or excused.
No, well, here's the thing, and I get that. Okay, wrestling is an opinion, whether you like it or not. I look at it this way. I try to compare it to other forms of entertainment. I look at, like, for example, a sitcom. The very popular sitcom back in was The Big Bang Theory.
Right.
For me, it was not. It didn't work for me.
Yeah.
But it did phenomenal ratings.
Right.
It was very successful, but it just wasn't my thing. Now, that pro wrestling is the same thing. People like certain presentations of pro wrestling, and unfortunately, today's audience has become more like treating wrestling more like a political stage as opposed to, you know what I mean?
Everything's becoming so combative and politicized.
Yes.
And like, yes, it is subjective company to company, but like, it also doesn't have to be motivated by like, okay, well, I like these guys, so regardless of what their answer is, these guys are right.
Right. It's and there was a big debate about the rules and stuff like that. Like the rules are there for a reason, to help tell that story in a match. And if you claim to present yourself as in a more sports-like atmosphere, then those rules should matter.
Absolutely. Which I feel like these experiences have probably led to what you've been doing a lot more recently now, which is your Reffin Rant. Why don't you talk a little bit about what the inspiration for that was and what kind of experience you've had with it, what kind of reaction you've received from the fan base?
Well, it's to be perfectly frank, it's there to be, not only to critique something or even put something over, because it's not always.
I find it's very mixed. It's just as much positive as it is negative.
I try to throw some positive things, like the most recent one I did. I threw a huge positive to somebody that I know and have great respect for, Josh Alexander. Just big thumbs up to him. So
good. I was really actually happy to hear you say in the rant this week that you were like, why is this guy not, everywhere?
Yeah. And it wasn't meant to disrespect Impact Wrestling, because I really appreciate what they do. And it wasn't
right.
I'm just saying a bigger platform for him.
Yeah. They've given him a platform, their legitimate platform, just as much as anybody else's. But you're right. Like, he is an absolutely phenomenal, outstanding athlete and talent.
Yeah. But go ahead. Yeah. But the rants themselves are there to bring out certain points that I notice. And there's sometimes things that I might notice that others may not, especially from a referee standpoint, because like I said earlier, referee's job is to be invisible until you need to be visible, without being a distraction as well. And I'm not going to say any names here, but there tends to be certain individuals who tend to get themselves noticed a little too much.
Sure.
And to me, I wish that wouldn't happen. It's
Yeah.
you know what I mean. That's my pet peeve. Here's a great example. Our producer for Aftermath.
Okay.
When we were at SummerSlam when it was here in Toronto. We did the watch along with the crew backstage and stuff like that for for their website and stuff like that. And then we were out watching the matches out in our seats, and I was sitting beside our producer, and and I kept saying to him, "Oh, this isn't the finish."
Yeah.
There'd be a kick out. And
Yeah.
I'd go, "Oh, this isn't the finish," and there'd be a kick out, and he'd go, "How do you know?"
Yeah.
And I say, and it has nothing
Listen
to do
the
with
crowd, brother.
No, I know, and it has nothing to do with what the talent is doing in the ring, like the moves or anything like that. I, for some reason, watch the referees, and I noticed a tell.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And which he says. So he asked me what it was, and I didn't want to tell him.
Mm-hmm.
And then I ended up telling him. And then after I told him, he says, "I can't unsee it."
You've ruined every match for me now.
Yeah. So so now I when it comes to stuff like that, I will not.
Back the curtain.
Yeah. Sure. It's okay. It's okay to pull back the curtain for a peek, but you don't want to, give everything away.
And that's for everybody.
Exactly. Yeah. Because he said, like I said, now I can't unsee it. So, but anyway.
I'm actually glad that you brought up the Aftermath right after you were talking about how, like there are certain people that maybe kind of stretch their role a little bit more than they should, because it's actually brings up kind of a good comparison in my mind that I've never really thought about before. A referee trying to be a character and getting themselves over and like all these other things going into the business for themselves. Think about it from this perspective. A backstage interviewer. Think about a backstage interviewer trying to do something along those lines. Like obviously we've got me and Gene, we've got, other like backstage interviewers that were good characters and everything. But imagine if they just middle of an interview started trying to make the whole thing about themselves. Like it doesn't make any sense. We're ancillary supporting characters that are trying to tell other people's stories. We're not there to be the focus of what's going on.
Right. Exactly. And again, like I said, unless there's a spot in the match, like I'll give you an example. What was it, last week or when they did the drop down leapfrog spot with Daryl in NXT, and everybody said, "Well, what about that?" I said, "But that's not like a spot that Daryl called.
Sure,
that was a spot
that's akin to a ref bump. Yeah,
right. That the talent inserted, or the agent, or whoever happened to be the one, and said, 'Hey, are you okay with doing this?'"
Yeah,
and.
Like, it doesn't matter what referee it is. Imagine a referee in the back trying to call that spot in the middle of a match or something like that. Like, they'd be laughed at. Yeah,
exactly. So it wasn't like him saying, "Okay, I want to do this and get myself over." He was asked to do it. And, like you or I would,
do the best that we can.
Yeah. Do the best that we can with whatever they give us. And again, have our moment, but at the same time, not let it be the moment.
Absolutely.
It takes away from everything, Yeah. And it was in a match that was a lot of fun anyways. You know what I mean? There was two babyface teams.
You got so much action. You got so many high flying. You got so much energy. Like, why not?
It's not, like you said, it wasn't him going into business for himself trying to get noticed.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
On that note, we are kind of winding down our time. I do like to offer our guests the last 5 minutes, like we've talked about previously. If there are any shows, any promotions, wrestlers, referees even, that you feel like wrestling hasn't really given a look to in the way that you feel like they should. Obviously, we've already brought up Josh Alexander, but please take the last 5 minutes, plug all your socials and anybody that you think. Go ahead.
There's a ton of, I wish I could, like, for example, I do enjoy watching Impact Wrestling. I think Impact Wrestling is very good. Obviously, hampered by the fact that you can't have live audiences and stuff like that.
Sure.
But at the same time, I think they're putting on a nice product, as is other promotions as well. I mean, ROH is doing the best they can. I wish people would give all promotions an opportunity. And as I said earlier in this little chat that we're having, stop treating it like politics. It isn't us versus them.
Yeah.
It's all of us. It's kind of like, I don't give a flying, what color your lawn sign is.
Sure.
You know what I mean? And I just listen to what you have to say. And if I like what you have to say, regardless of what side of the fence you're on, I like it. You know what I mean? And I wish people would just treat wrestling, give it more of a fair shake. Look, there's stuff going on with the WWE that I like. There's stuff going on with WWE I dislike. isn't sitting well for me. When I watch AEW, there's stuff that I enjoy. I'm entertained by it, but again, there's other things that happen that make me go, and I just, for me, there is so much talent. I'll tell you what, you talk about AEW, MJF.
Yeah.
For a guy as young as he is, to get it the way he does already, because man,
and he's been,
I'm telling you this,
for years already. It's not like, he joined AEW and then, whoever had influence on him and all of a sudden he's amazing. Like, he's been this insanely talented heel for at least 5-6 years now.
So this guy, when you talk about guys that are money, this guy is money, because not only is he poised to be maybe a heel of the decade, that eventually that'll turn into monstrous babyface.
Yes.
So there's a couple guys, like I said, I mentioned Josh Alexander. There's just too many to mention.
Sure.
Just too many to mention. There's a lot out there. It's just hard to get everybody enough visibility. Let's put it that way.
Any, just going to push you a little bit more. Any referees out there that have caught your attention? Obviously, nobody that's contract signed or anything like that. But anybody that kind of enters your sphere of notice?
Well, obviously I don't want to, again, I haven't seen, I'm going to be perfectly honest, I haven't seen much of the championship wrestling from Hollywood and stuff like that. So, man, trying to figure something out.
Do you work with any like refs up in Canada at this point? I know, like, I feel like you're around Battle Arts sometimes. Is that correct? Or
I was, but not now, because obviously for over a year. I've been. My wife and I have been doing our anti-social distancing for quite a while now. So nice. I unfortunately haven't been able to visit any. There's a couple of young guys up here that I think have potential. They know who they are.
Oh, okay.
I'm just going to leave it at that. Like, I just don't want to.
We don't need to give them too much of a rub. Yeah.
Well, I don't want to put them on blast or anything like that. But obviously, like everybody else, they need some work. And I will give a shout out to my old buddy Harry up here. He knows who he is.
Harry D, absolutely.
Yes, absolutely.
One of the best. Yeah. What a wonderful human being.
Oh my goodness, yes.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate your time. Sorry if I was a pest trying to get you locked down for one of these, but it was worth it. I really, 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 really appreciated you being here. This has been a great learning experience for me. So thank you.
No, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it, and keep up the good work with the Zebra Talk. I love this stuff. You know what I mean? It lets people know that, hey, we're people too.
We exist. Yeah.
We exist. Yes.
I'm just trying to leave the community better than how I found it. You know what I mean? Just trying to pick it up and do as much as I can to leave a positive environment after I'm done for the people.
And that's what I'm trying to do with my Reffin Rants every day. Absolutely. You can catch me on Twitter at Jimmy Korderas, Instagram at Real Jimmy Korderas, because I guess somebody else snagged my name somewhere. I don't know what the heck happened there. But on all my social media accounts. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here, folks. Thank you very much for listening. If you would like to support the Zebra Talk Fund, you can find us on prowrestlingtees.com/Zebra Talk. All of the money goes straight into the travel fund for our referees. We're awarding one referee a month, a little bit of extra financial assistance getting to and from shows. If you would like to find us on our socials, Zebra Talk 123 on everything. Find me on Facebook, Referee Odie Brown. And if you are a referee and you're not in Zebra Talk yet, we'll get you in there and you can start learning from some pretty amazing people that have been gracious enough to give us their time. Thank you very much for being here again. And thank you folks for listening.